All right. Well, I am really happy to have Gerald Heydenreich here, founder of EtherMail. Thank you so much for joining today.
So very nice meeting you. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this because it's a space that I've been thinking about for years and years and years. And there's very few companies that seem to be doing it. And I really wanted to unpack what's happening right now in this space. So, just to preface all of this first, recently EtherMail launched its email as a wallet service. It's a solution enabling users to create non custodial wallets through Gmail or Apple accounts in under a minute, broadening the
All right.
accessibility of blockchain-based applications and services to billions of users worldwide who currently do not have a digital wallet. EtherMail has over 500,000 users and announced a $4 million funding round led by the powerhouse of Tim Draper and Draper Associates last year. So, all right, that's fantastic. I really want to unpack this a little
Great.
bit more and hear
Sure.
about what led you to help found EtherMail, because I love the backstories that people have, what they started off in, what they're involved with, and then what led them down this road. So I'd love to hear that from you.
Very cool. Yeah. So I've been actually for more than 20 years an entrepreneur. I started with a B2B software company in the end of the 90s, actually, and then sold this. And in 2006, I created another company in the B2C space. And there, actually, we were sending every day around 10 million emails. So it was a large e-commerce play, and we eventually ended up selling it to Amazon. But I learned a lot about email and how powerful email is. And of course, for a period of time, people always thought, okay, social media is more important, Telegram, WhatsApp, and all these other things. And it's all true. They all have their place. But if you look at it, email is still the second biggest communication channel on earth. 4.3 billion people use email. Every company in the world will have on their website, leave your email here, log in with email. So we really, I believe you can't kill email. Yeah, you can make it better potentially, but you can't kill email. Of course, I know that many people have a bit of a twisted relationship, sometimes to it. It's a love-hate relationship because email very often means you get stuff and you have to do something. So the social media, of course, is nicer, right? Because you can chit chat, but it really is there. And it's going to be there to stay. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I really started to focus on Web3 together with Shand. Actually, he's the CEO and the president, so we are founders, and he's a technical genius basically. And we kind of started to dabble into Web3 and support some projects, and we basically saw all these projects in Web3, and it's a niche, I know, in a certain way, but they all had a problem of really getting in contact with their users after token launch. People would leave, they didn't know anymore who the token is. So for example, Dolce Gabbana sold 4,000 NFTs, but they don't really know who the end users are anymore because, well, you have sold them to an anonymous wallet. So Shan came up with this amazing idea and saying, well, what happens if we connect a wallet to an email, basically? And conceptually, if you think about it, an email today is just a communication channel, but a wallet is a payment mechanism, it's an encryption mechanism, and it is identification. So these three things all of a sudden are attached to a communication mechanism. And that was something which when I looked at it, at the beginning, I have to admit, I didn't get it. It was so weird to think of, okay, how can you make email better? It's kind of a weird concept. But then there's so many other things when you start thinking about what you could do with it, that it actually makes a lot of sense. So I'm happy to explain you what it actually does and why it's so
Please.
amazing, but I also don't want to kind of rabble on all the time.
No, that's fantastic. I appreciate the background. So I am trying to understand a little bit more, and I've read all about it, but I want to hear from your words what EtherMail does.
So essentially, it's like a bit of a marketplace, let's say. So it has two sides because, of course, communication by definition has to have a sender and a receiver basically on both ends. So for us, receivers, let's say, are primarily end consumers, and look at it as an inbox basically. Of course, you can also send emails and so on, but for the moment, let's focus on the inbox capabilities. So it allows every user to now log in with their Gmail, and by logging with a Gmail, we create actually a wallet. So this would be for people who don't have a wallet yet, or for people who already have a wallet, they actually can also put in their wallet with an @ethermail.io. You can also connect, for example, an alias like an ENS domain, so gary.eth@ethermail.io, but it would still have always the wallet address behind it. So this is the end consumer side. An easy thing what the end consumer could do, they can send a payment from my email to your email, for example. So because the email has a payment mechanism identification, I can basically send you funds, Joseph, and saying, well, I want to send you now 10 USD or 15. And it just would go actually from my wallet to your wallet. But the communication channel essentially is the email. So the beauty of it, of course, is it works with any email system. And then if you want to have more and more features, then you can download something. But on the web, basically, it also works just like a normal email system. And that makes it, of course, compatible. So this is the end user side. On the business side, essentially, we have built something like, let's call it a MailChimp for Web3, let's say, because we essentially take not only your email lists from the company side, but we look basically at a smart contract, what a company has issued, and then look at where the token or NFTs are. So example, Dolce & Gabbana issues an NFT, which serves as an access for them for primary collections, specific benefits and gifts and so on. So they would actually have a smart contract. They would sell from the smart contract the token into, or the NFT actually into the wallets of the holders. And now, as the blockchain always know in which wallet the token is, it gives the company a self-updating email registry. So every day, basically, it would look at where is the token and are you an existing user or have you sold it to somebody else? And then the new person would automatically be in there. So you always know and can stay in contact with the people. And then the third element to it basically is an advertisement model, because we have all those users. Companies basically can send promotional emails, we call this consensual marketing, to end users. And then end users actually receive a reward for this. So we would take, for example, $10,000 we receive an advertisement, 7,000 of this we give to the user in the form of the token, and they get rewarded for interacting with the email. Very much, of course, focused on their preferences, but also on activity, what they have with their wallet. So that's kind of the easy way of how to explain it.
Fantastic overview, and I really do appreciate that. There's several things in there that we will hopefully jump into in just a second. So one of the ethoses for Web3 is to push back on some of the traditional Web2 powerhouses like the Googles or sometimes the Apples. So I'm trying to understand, I guess, if you have these purists that are out there that are like Web3, decentralization, the security, all of those pieces, how do you bridge the gap between what you're doing, which is taking this Web3 idea and then bringing it back into sort of the Web2 world?
Yes. So let's say there's two concepts. Let's call it more a philosophical concept of Web3, what Web3 is versus Web2. But then there's the question also, how do we get from Web2 and Web3? So one of the core ideas of Web3 is that data is owned by the person who actually has the data. So my data belongs to me, and I decide what I do with the data. So very easy as of today. Today, my data sits with Gmail or with Facebook or with anybody else, basically, and they do whatever they want to, more or less, with my data. But the data doesn't sit with me, and I, point by point, basically, would give people access to this data. So that is going to change completely in Web3. The web, basically, so the data will sit with the user, and then basically I allow somebody to give access to this data. Small example. For example, in Web3 email, today, I just receive an email, I go to a website, I register, I put in all my stuff on the website, and then I basically, 12 steps later, I eventually get to buying a product, for example. In a Web3 email, actually, I would receive an email, and then I can click in the email on I want to buy something, and then with that click, I transfer payment, I transfer identification, and I transfer, for example, size from my wallet to that provider for one time, and then I would actually get a product, basically. But the data stays with me. It's my data. So that's a very big difference. And now, bridging that gap between Web 2 and Web 3, let's say, as of today, the problem in Web 3 really is people have a very big problem in understanding what Web 3 really is, in our opinion. And number two is it's very technical and very difficult to understand. Everybody who has installed a MetaMask browser or a MetaMask plugin, all these other things, and yet you have the mobile and it doesn't work on the mobile, and then it's a different thing. It's just very difficult, and then you have to sign cryptical transactions which you don't really understand. So there's a lot of things which make it a very big hurdle for people to enter into Web3, and we're missing the smartphone, the iPhone momentum, basically what Apple did in 2006, basically now. That it makes it's very, very easy to interact with Web3. And we believe email can be this, because email is understood by everybody, and eventually that's potentially, in our opinion, something what can really bridge the gap between Web 2 and Web 3. And there's also a lot of interesting use cases which make it very tangible for people to basically really say, I want to enter.
Fantastic. No, thank you for that. And there is clearly a need for organizations to come like yours is doing on helping people who have no idea. And this is terribly complicated. I mean, when you start talking about idiosyncrasies of Web3, of blockchain core technology, it's really complicated. It's very difficult. So if you can
Yeah.
simplify that, ease the on ramp for individuals, that's huge. And it's absolutely necessary right now. Um, so it almost sounds like it's sort of Web 2.5. I know you're Web 3, but you're helping people
Oh,
onboard themselves into this
yeah.
space, which is critical, absolutely critical. Um, when people bring up the security aspects of having sort of an organization that's still sort of the central organization around this as the on ramp, how do you describe that? How do you allay their concerns around that component?
So eventually, the data doesn't sit with us. For example, the wallet, it's a non-custodial wallet. That means we just provide the access onto the blockchain in Ethereum in this context. But of course, we don't own the keys. We don't have the wallet. We don't know anything about the user. All emails are encrypted. So in the extreme case, basically the wallet always stays. Okay, so we also, of course, don't have access to it. So that's one part of it. And the second part is, it's the email. Of course, that email kind of is our email, what we have issued. There has been discussions around, okay, putting it potentially on the blockchain or in the DAO and all these things. There's one challenge in our opinion, and there's, you see, the purest view, let's say, then there is the reality view, in my opinion, very often. If you decentralize everything, it becomes again very, very complicated. And that again, actually by definition, makes it very difficult for people to access. So for example, we get the question, so where do you host your data? So then we say, well, we host it on AWS actually, because it's the best and fastest way of actually how to get the data out to the people. Of course, we could start using decentralized storage places and all these other things. But the truth is, at the moment, it's the easiest way. Can we read the data? No, we can't. It's all encrypted. So that's a bit of a difference. And I think eventually, as an organization, you have to play between what's technologically possible to be 150% secure. And by the way, I don't think everything is ever 100% secure.
Impossible.
Well, let's make it so complicated and be so complicated that people don't really understand it. Like if we all know these different passwords, and then it's two-factor authentication, you don't even get in there anymore. And well, it's make it practicable that you can still use it, because if I'm super secure but I can't access anymore, well, then what's the purpose?
No, you're dead on there. So I heard the part about keys. So who owns the keys? Hopefully the individual.
Yeah, of
Okay.
course. Yeah, we don't even know the keys, of course. So it's not our wallet; it's the user who has the keys, and basically he can only recuperate it. Of course, there's a security mechanism basically on how he can recuperate it, and there's three versions: it's encrypted and so on. Essentially, we could never access a wallet on email, basically, and we can also not read the content of an email. That's very important because it's encrypted.
Okay, fantastic. Another component that jumped out to me that I'm kind of curious about is I know it would add a layer of complication, but if someone has a grail, like a crypto punk or something along those lines, and they wanted to transfer it from one wallet to another wallet or from one person to another, it's sold or just they're sending it to them because they're goodwill, whatever it is. But can you
Sure.
incorporate a hardware wallet into this?
Yes, I mean, eventually the hardware wallet is just a reflection of a software wallet, let's say, on the EtherMail. So of course you could also have a hardware wallet connected to your EtherMail account. So that wouldn't really matter. But then it would just take that key basically from the hardware wallet. And then, for example, with Paymail, be able to transfer it via the Paymail channel basically into your wallet. And I would have a transaction receipt, and it also eliminate this typical thing of I'm transferring open one ETH into your wallet. Then you text me on Telegram or WhatsApp. Yeah, I received it, and I transfer the rest. Here it would basically send you an email. You would say, okay, yes, I want to receive this open one, and then I say, okay, transfer open one ETH to Joseph, and then it's done basically. And we have a trail also what has been happening.
Okay. Okay, great. So clearly, EtherMail denotes Ethereum, and for those people who are less familiar, it's essentially the biggest blockchain next to Bitcoin, but it's sort of a virtual machine that allows for all sorts of things to be built on top of it. Clearly, this is one example of building on top of that. But there are multiple other large blockchains that they're certainly growing in popularity, one of which is Solana, and there's a ton of other ones, but Solana's sort of
Yeah.
got the limelight right now. So my question
Yes.
is, do you see other blockchains being a part of this in the future, or is it something you're looking towards, or just sticking with Ethereum?
Mhm. Yeah, so first, of course, we already are in the process of branching out into layer 2 blockchains, Avalanche, Polygon, and so on. So that's the natural first step for us. We have already reserved the other names for the other blockchains, and we are definitely open, also willing to do this in the future. But as always, eventually it boils down to focus. And as an organization which is just growing and setting out to do all these things, we have said, let's focus at the moment on the biggest part of the market, which is 70 to 80%, which is really Ethereum. And then, of course, we'll step by step also branch out into other blockchains, because there is an existence and there's a reason for it. But again, eventually focus on something and then step by step grow.
Okay, excellent. So I'll stop with a story here that I think is kind of funny because it helps bring this all together in some way, at least in my opinion, but you could tell me otherwise. So many moons ago, there was an NFT that I had seen, of course, on the Ethereum network that I was like, oh, I'd love to have that, but it sat in some wallet. And this wallet, of course, I didn't know the person, didn't know the name.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and I was like, how would I ever reach out to that individual such that I
Yeah.
could potentially say, hey, I'd love to barter with you on this, whatever the case is. It was not for sale. And so what I did was I minted my own NFT that basically was a
Uh-huh.
narrative. It had probably 10 sentences on it saying, hey, I'd love to see what you had there. I'd love to potentially buy it. Let's wheel and deal on this one. And I minted it. Then I sent it to his wallet. It took
Uh-huh.
probably 3 months before he saw it, because not everyone reviews everything that's in their wallet to begin with.
Yes.
He finally
Yes.
saw that and minted something else back to me in my wallet before before
I
finally
love the
we
story.
came. It was crazy, right?
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was 3-ish, 4 years ago, earlier
Nice.
days of all of this. But yeah, so this
Uh-huh.
to me seems like an absolute, total, perfect way for people to start to exchange, which leads me to one of my final questions that I'd love to, and then after that, I'd love to hear some more thoughts on it. But how do you get people onboarded in this? How do you get people to interact? It's such a disparate like group of people all over the world that are trying to engage. How do you move the ball forward to get the word out there and then people to finally get involved in this?
Of course. So first of all, the good news is actually you could have now just taken the wallet address, put at ethermail.io, and just send an email, and perhaps the guy actually had an email, ethermail, or has an ethermail email, and then would be able to read without
Yes.
minting. But I love the story. I think it's pretty actually good. I haven't heard about it, but I think it's pretty good. So on the how do you get the flywheel started, right? So of course at the beginning, again, it's a marketplace, right? So it's you have to buyer, sender, and receiver basically. So we really started out and launched into the public the EtherMail end user solution, and we just said, okay, let's see what's happening basically. And something quite interesting happened when we launched it, and then actually we got some press and so on. Actually, we're just chatting with Chandabar. Then, I mean, first day there was, I don't know, 10 registrations, right? Next day there were 100 registrations. And the next day it was 1,000 registrations. And then the next day it was 10,000 registrations. We're like,
Wow.
whoa, what's happening here?
Exponential.
So
Yeah.
because yeah, it's substantial, exactly. Yeah. And we can eventually what happened is the thing went viral because there is a built-in mechanism in it, which basically incentivizes people to invite other people. You remember actually perhaps the time at PayPal when you basically could sign up with PayPal and then basically receive $10, I think it was, and then basically start sending. So we have built something similar in our logic where actually you have an incentive to install and actually use and register with us. So that part actually started to really take off, and we have every day between I don't know 3 and 10,000 people now who are registering basically. And then the other part, basically, on the company side, of course, helps also significantly because eventually the companies are onboarding their users. So every company who's opting in to use our MailChimp-like Web3 marketing suite, they communicate to their users. Then these users become EtherMail users. Then they invite other users. So it is really a mechanism of eventually a marketplace of communication. And the more companies we have, the more users we have, the more users we have, the more companies we have. And then, of course, more virality happens also.
Wonderful. So for the degens out there, I have to ask, any DAO thoughts or any tokens forthcoming?
Yeah, I mean, sure. It's the token actually is a very important element in our business model. So because essentially it gives the rewards for interacting with emails. So at the moment we give an internal coin, it's the EtherMail coin, but very soon we actually will have the email token, the EMT basically, and people receive EMTs for interacting with promotional emails. That's a very important milestone, of course, for us. So we are gearing up towards it. Yeah, people already have registered, and everybody who has EMC in the future will be able to actually withdraw EMT based on percentage of ownership and so on. So we are very excited and focused fully on this at the moment.
All right. No, great to hear. Okay. Any future thoughts, anything that you'd like to add to our conversation?
I think eventually the big challenge for all of us is to bring it out into the Web 2 world or Web 2.5 world, as you correctly said, Joseph. I think there's so many opportunities in Web 3, and I mean, again myself, first time I heard about Bitcoin, it was I think 6 or 7 years ago, and I also said no, forget it, I don't understand. This is crazy. It's all scam and so on. And it took me another 3 or 4 years, unfortunately, to really understand it. And I think the important thing is to understand that Bitcoin is not crypto. Crypto is not scamming, and it's not all about just trying to get rich fast. It is really about great use cases, which are only possible with this new technology. And our objective now is to build as many use cases as possible in the Web 2.5 logic, let's say, in order to onboard the Web 2 world, because we can just make a lot of things better. We believe email can be done a lot better with technologies which we have learned in Web 3.
Wonderfully stated. Honestly, I think there's such a felt need for this type of thing in this space, and it's wonderful to hear about. And I really appreciate you taking the time to go through it today. So thank you so much for joining.
Thank you very much, Joe. It's a pleasure on my side.
Of course. My goodness. All right. Well, I really appreciate it. That was wonderful. It's great to hear about all the idiosyncrasies and everything, how it comes together, because it's really important people understand this stuff and are not fearful of it
Yes.
because of all the scam stuff that's out there that hopefully will still continue to, we're going to see it for a long time just because it's the nature of the
Yes.
beast. But in time, hopefully this stuff
It
will
is.
filter out and through. So, Gerald, thank you so
It
much.
is.